Oh, here I am. Hello. I didn't want to let the counter go all the way down because I was impatient. I'm ready to go. It's 11:20, and I assume you're ready to go too. So, good morning. We'll go ahead and turn on the music. Welcome to Electronic Literature. This is section 2, the 11:20 section, and I am the professor, as usual, Dr. Zach Wayland, and I am here to talk about several things related to this class today. A lot of them are going to be kind of, what's going on kind of things, but also want to introduce the idea of combinatory poetics, because that is the unit or the topic we'll be discussing over the next couple weeks. So, hello and good morning. As usual, it's always great to see you all say good morning or hello on the stream, or either in Twitch or Discord, so I kind of know who's out there. So I should tell you, I'm using a new computer, and I just sort of barely set it up. So I think everything is working okay, but the first section helped me troubleshoot the microphone, so that I think is sounding okay now and sounds normal now. But earlier in this section 1, I was having a hard time getting it to actually make sound. But I had I've set things up pretty similarly as before. So you've got the Discord chat coming up here above me. You've got, I'm keeping an eye on Twitch. I've got actually a whole new setup here, which is only half done. I'm going to actually set up a second monitor from this computer so that I don't need to have my laptop, and I can more seamlessly do multiple things at once here. Looking forward to having that set up, but I need to acquire a couple more. I need to get the actual stand for my second monitor, and yeah, I'm pretty excited about how that's going to go. But I got a whole new computer, and it's it's a beast compared to my old one, so it seems to be doing okay. I don't know if you'll perceive any difference, but it's actually, wow, yeah, that's amazing. So I just noticed, so I'm streaming at 60 FPS, and yeah, I mean, you could, I think, I don't know, if you find that's, I think you can adjust it, or at least I think Twitch may actually dial it back to 30, but so it's putting out 60 right now, and the CPU is at 1.5%, so that's nice. Oh man, so that means I can do multiple things. Like I can run multiple things at once. Like I could probably render video in the background while streaming. That's crazy. At 3.5 kilobits a second is what it's streaming at, and man, this is, I kind of splurged. I got the, it wasn't that much more, but than the i7, but I got the i9 Intel CPU, which is crazy. So, and it's overclocked. This is overclocked i9, so it's it's amazing. So anyway, and tons of RAM. So I should be, basically I was trying to buy a computer that would be okay for like 5 years. Like I was trying to buy a computer that is not going to run out, so I kind of beefed up the RAM. Of course, the GPU is the problem. I was not able to get a modern GPU, but I figured maybe in a year or two, I might have time. It might be possible to purchase an RTX 3080. But for now, I'm going to do okay with the GTX 1660, which I got for only slightly above retail price, and I was kind of frustrated about that. But I imagine if I do ever get a chance to buy a 3080, I could sell this or put it in my other computer for my kids to use. So anyway, I got the bird cam over there as usual, but I put it in a circle because I thought that kind of looked nice. But so far I just saw a dark-eyed junco this morning and maybe something else, but that's all I saw. But if you do see something there, I do have it all already set up so I can switch over to the full view in case something exciting happens on the bird cam. We'll see. You never know. Things happen sometimes. So hope you all are doing well. Hope you had a good surprise 3-day weekend. It was okay. I'm okay with that. I don't mind. But I have several things I want to talk about today, and I'm going to go through it here in the slides. I did share the slides link earlier in the chat if you want to scroll back and look at it on your own. But the you have pet birds? Moon? That's cool. So the it's always, we got to have birds, right? Yeah, so if you want to look at the slides, you can, but it's really just a couple like things to remind me to talk about. So it's not like a lecture slide. Like this is not really a lecture slideshow, if that makes sense. So I have a lot to say, but it's not really a lecture. So you're welcome to look at it on your own if you want, and I guess I'll link to it somewhere, but like in the Canvas schedule. But mainly this is to remind me some things to tell you, and here are some of those things. So you got a fish, Bobby. That's great. What kind of fish did you get? Good morning, Naomi. Hi. So these are the things we're going to talk about. The homework, there's a new homework option, which I'll show you. It's called Annotate, and this is something that you can do using Perusall. Oh, cool. What does double delta mean? Beta? Double delta? We have a beta. Well, my daughter does, I should say. Her name is Tasha. And we just put Tasha in a new tank, and she was unhappy in her old one, we think, and kind of sick. And so we put her in the new one, and she seems great. So I don't know what double delta means, though. Is that a particular marking or something? I don't know. Anyway, so we get the annotate option. I want to talk about that. The schedule is filled in with a lot of things coming up in the next 2 weeks. I want to remind you that Wednesday is a hybrid day, so if you're in the even cohort, then I will see you in person on Wednesday in the classroom, HCC 329. So that's the plan for this week. And for today in this lecture or this stream that I'm doing, I want to talk about the quiz a little bit, the creative project, which is an assignment that I'm going to introduce to you, and then get you started a little bit with combinatory poetics. But mainly the meat of that, of course, will come in the reading from Scott Rutberg's book, which is available to you, which you have on your own, or there's also a version of it in Perusall if you want to annotate it that way. All right, cool. So let's talk about the quiz. As you see, I'm just going to be kind of tabbing around to different things. So quiz 1, here we are. Yeah, don't worry about it. There's a bunch of other like placeholder quizzes. Don't worry about that. All right, so I'm going to look at the statistic. This is not going to show anyone's individual responses. This is just going to give me a way to show you the graph of how you all did, right, together. It's going to be just aggregated. And if you remember, I think I said this, I was interested in having not a bell curve, but something like this. So this is good. The highest score currently is 50 because I haven't graded the essay questions yet, and those will, of course, bring you up to, I guess, 100%. But what I see now is pretty much what I wanted. I would be happier with an even steeper curve, right? I don't want a bell curve. I'm not looking for most of you to get a C. I'm looking for most of you to get an A, which is true right now, but I think we could push more of you over that way too, and that would be great, right? So if we could sort of kind of and I will follow up with some people, like if you're way down here, I want to see if we can figure out what happened there. But for the most part, it looks like most of you did well. But also, looking through each of the questions, most of you got each question right. So that gives me some confidence that things are making sense and that you're putting these things together and that you're able to repeat them, right? So this one obviously is born digital. You might have worded it slightly differently or spelled it differently. Someone looks like did do that in a way that the Canvas didn't recognize. So I'll check that and see if it's close enough. I'll give it to you. But it should be some version of digital, I guess. So I don't know what else, what other way you might have spelled that, but I'll check. But everything else, yeah, I mean, it seems like most of you got these right. That's good. For things like names and dates, I really, that's the thing that a couple of these were missing on. So many of you seem to miss this one, and I did spend a fair amount of time talking about this. But the other thing too is like you should always bear in mind whenever there's a question with a name in it or a date. These are named things in both the source, the text, right, the textbook, and the Google Docs. So Control F, like search for it, find it, and you should see it, right? So if you forget who Catherine Hales was, we've got an essay by her, but also Rutberg talks about her work. Todorov, Bogost, Kittler, these are others that are named in Scott Rutberg's chapter. So Control F, see what Ian Bogost has to say. If it doesn't seem like technological determinism, or if it's not in that section where Rutberg's talking about technological determinism, then that's a good sign that it's not the right answer. So move on to the next one. The correct answer is Kittler. And I should say this is an oversimplification of Kittler's point of view, but I think I'm trying to get some terminology out there, try to get some vocabulary. That's really what's going on there. All right, so yeah, and these is also the matching stuff. Again, most of these you got right. This is really the trickiest one, I think, because I did briefly show you Code Movie 1. I actually uploaded it into Canvas if you go to the Files section, but the actual, we didn't spend a lot of time on it. I didn't really show you how to use that other than briefly in the lecture. I was kind of counting on you all to recognize everything else and then use process of elimination to find that one. It looks like most of you did. Although between Code Movie 1 and this, however you say this, by Mez Breeze, I think they are kind of similar, or they might have, that I think is probably what some of you got confused, but most of you didn't, so good. All right, so I'll take a look at the actual responses in the speed grader, but I hope the essay questions were good. I hope they were, the prompts, I guess, were useful in terms of giving you something to respond to, and I'm kind of curious to see when I looked through it, which ones you chose. For this one, I was trying to group all of the ones that sort of had to do with genre or definitions into this group, and so these are all kind of similar ultimately. So you whichever one you choose, you should hopefully be talking about genres to some extent. And then this one, though, these three are pretty different from each other. So there's one about sort of the difficulty question, something about the purpose or the agenda for this kind of work, and then the last one having to do with video games, because that was one of the suggestions. So good. I'm glad you liked having multiple options, and I think I'll definitely continue doing that. So, all right. I just saw Zoe's comment in Discord. Yeah. All right. So that was a quiz. I think it went okay. So there will be another quiz, obviously. I mean, there will be several more, but the next one actually is not until March, just because I couldn't figure out where else to put it, and I wanted to get through both combinatory poetics and hypertext before the next quiz. So it'll be a bigger quiz because it's going to cover two pretty big areas. I just couldn't really figure out how to split it into two and have time for it in the schedule. So I hope that's okay to do a big one. But because of that, I definitely plan to spend some time with review for that. So it's on way over here to March 12th, right? So this is kind of the pseudo spring break week, even though obviously we don't really get spring break. That Wednesday class is canceled, but that week is pretty much not much else other than the quiz going on. So that's my intention anyway. So like that Monday, we'll probably spend Monday reviewing for the quiz and then going from there. But that's pretty far down the line. So let me back up on the schedule and show you some other things that are here now for you to look at. Yes, Bobby. Yeah, keep using the same Google Doc actually for collaborative notes. I mean, if it gets unwieldy, we could split it off into a separate doc, but definitely, yeah, we're definitely gonna keep doing that. Did you all find that helpful? Like, were you using the Google Doc when you took the quiz? Because I hope so. Yes. Okay. Good. All right. Yeah, I think it's also useful. The process of recording the notes is useful. Like the actual idea, the process of like reading and then trying to summarize it in your own words. I think that's a good way to get to know something too. But then it becomes a reference for everyone else. So good. Okay. Seeing lots of lots of affirmations in Discord. So that's good. Okay. So we are on. Where are we? Here we are. February 15th right now. So I am going to eventually introduce combinatory poetics today. I also am going to talk about the creative project in a moment, but just wanted to kind of give you a glance at the schedule for the rest of this week, right? So even cohorts, this is week 4, so even cohorts will meet in person on Wednesday, and on Wednesday we will talk about chapter 2, combinatory poetics. It's a bit of a longer chapter, so spend some time with it. It is available in Perusal if you want to look at it that way. And as you think about what to do for homework, let me show you, I'll just get another tab for that, show you the options here. So this is the generic homework assignment, and for most days this is what we have here, right? So I've added a new option here, option 5, and what I've suggested is to do basically what we did with Catherine Hale's essay originally, where I told you all to come up with like 5 to 10 roughly, comments. So this is where you could highlight and comment something, or just to kind of explain it back to yourself. Or if there's a term you don't understand, you can highlight it and ask a question about it. Or I might go in and ask some questions ahead of time. I think I will also go through and look for things that I can link to. So if there are examples that Redberg talks about that are online, I can give you links to those. Of course, there's the ELMSIP database, which has all of those listed, and I'll make sure to share that. I'll add that to the schedule in a minute. But anyway, the idea is if you do this option using Perusal, just like the other homework options, just go through like what you submit on the assignment page here. When you submit this, is just say I add annotations in Perusal, and that will count. That's fine. I will check them, but I basically believe you. All right, so let's take a look here. So this is so I'm wondering. Let me just try something here. This might work. So this is the chapter 2, obviously. I'm wondering if I can I'm trying to see if I can add a link to I guess I could just put it in the comment, but so because there's the ELMSIP database page for this chapter, and I don't know, I need to find the actual link to it. Just Scott sent me the link to it. There we go. Yeah, so this is a list of everything that's referenced in this chapter, which, as you can see by skimming it, is actually a lot. I mean, this is 3 pages worth of creative works, but for many of these, you can click on it and learn about it. So you can click on House of Dust, and here's some stuff about it. I should probably add my teaching resource. It looks like you can add syllabi to this. I should add mine. But this is this work, right? You can learn a lot about it. There's other versions of this work that I'll link you to, but this is the idea. Like, you can learn about any of these individual works here. So let me grab this URL and put this in Perusall here. Here's the zip. I got a new keyboard, by the way. Can you hear it? It's super clicky. I'm not sure I like the clickiness. I think I do, but my wife was like, "Why did you get that? It's so loud." It is, but that's all right. It's a mechanical keyboard, so it's like a little bit bouncy when I type on it. I really like that part of it. I don't care for the sound necessarily, but I usually have headphones on when I'm typing anyway. If I'm writing or coding, so the sound doesn't bother me that much. But it's perceived by everyone else. Yeah, it's fun, right? It's clickety clackety, and it's like, yeah, I got like the cheapest mechanical keyboard I could find, basically, and it has LEDs, so there's all these colors, but I didn't really want colors. But you can't, as I learned when I was shopping for new computer stuff, is like you kind of can't avoid LEDs on things. Like, everything has LEDs on it for some reason, and I do not care what the inside of my computer looks like, but I guess people do, and so hardware manufacturers just kind of make things look pretty and shiny and blinky just because they can. I guess people like sharing than rating each other's setups, but it just does not appeal to me at all. Anyway, I like my computer. I'm happy with it so far. But oh, right, yeah, the microphone is a factor in terms of how you're going to be perceived with your typing. Yeah. And I like I have a new mouse too, which is nice. It has a rubber scroll wheel, which is much better than my old one. Okay, so that's the homework option. And just kind of looking ahead, right? So Friday will be another Zoom, and then these are several links to like hosted versions of these, and most of these, like stochastic text, love letters, those, and House of Dust. These are implementations of older works. So these are ports to JavaScript. So these are things that were originally coded for computers in the 1950s and the 60s, but people have recoded them or simulated them basically using JavaScript. So you can access those that way. These other ones are more modern works. And then Policeman's Beard is half constructed as a book. And so I've got the PDF of the book uploaded here. I might add it to Perusall. That would definitely be a copyright violation. So I don't know if I should do that or not, but I might. Okay, so let me talk about the Creator Project. So I wish I could come up with a better name for this project, but I really haven't. This is the purpose of this assignment. So it's fun to be creative, and many of you, I think, are really interested in trying to create things like what we're looking at in this class. And so this is an introduction to that. That's one purpose of this. I think it can be fun. I think students often produce really amazing work for this assignment. That said, this is not meant to be like an assignment where I'm going to evaluate like the technical polish or sophistication of your work necessarily. I'm much more interested in what you learned through the process of creating the work, which is to say that if you are interested in studying or playing interactive fiction, I think you'll understand interactive fiction a lot better if you've tried to make it. In other words, if you understand the kinds of choices and problems you have to solve whenever you create something like that, you'll understand someone else's choices and their problem-solving process when you view their work. And in many cases, you'll appreciate it more. Like, you'll see how much work they put into it or how cleverly they solved certain problems that you know exist for a particular platform. And I think you just basically understand and learn a lot more about it as you do it. So there's kind of two things then that you're learning about. You're learning both about a genre like interactive fiction or hypertext fiction, but then you're also learning about a platform. So, it might be Twine or one of several others. And in navigating both of those things, I think you'll, again, understand works created for those things much better. So that's the idea. It's meant to be short, so like 5 to 10 minutes. And that's not a minimum or a maximum. It's just, it's just a way of me saying don't make a novel, right? Like just make something that can be experienced pretty quickly. I would suggest something that gets across a strong idea pretty quickly. And if you have no idea where to start, I think I can make some suggestions. One general suggestion that I make for people who are struggling for an idea is think of some memory from childhood and create an experience using whatever platform that invites people to visit that memory with you, like to go back in time with you to experience that day or that experience, whatever it was. That's a pretty generic suggestion, but it often can produce pretty interesting things. Or maybe not a memory, but like today, like take us through your day and how would you make a version of today in whatever platform? And I can help come up with other suggestions, but I think just by brainstorming and thinking about it a bit, you'll be fine. This is due in a few weeks, so we got, I think, March 8th. So we have time to develop these ideas a little bit, but what I want you to do today, if possible, and certainly before Wednesday, is take a look through some of these options that exist down here below. So I have a list of several options, and let's see, in terms of my slideshow, I'm here, talking about the creative project. Tabs. So I have a lot of links to platforms here, and this is what I'm going to do is a very quick tool parade where I'm going to take you through some of these. I'm not really going to have time to demo all of these, but I will hopefully show you kind of how they work and give you a sense of the kind of thing people make with some of these. You might be familiar with some of these tools, but hopefully at least one of these is new to you. And I really encourage you, as you're evaluating different tools here, try to maybe choose something that you have not used before. So something that is new to you and is a challenge for you to try to figure it out. Okay, so let me go through it quickly here. This is not, again, meant to be a detailed demo. This is just a quick, let's just go through it kind of thing. So Twine, right? So let's start with Twine. I think many of you probably will start with Twine. Maybe you've already heard of Twine or already done some things in Twine. That's great. This is twinery.org. This is the website where you can access it. A bunch of birds just showed up. So this is my main advice with Twine is don't use it online, right? I'm going to use it online right now just to demo it, but I really strongly recommend you download it before you start working with it, because when you do this, when you say use it online, you are actually creating a story that is being stored in your browser's cache, like your browser's memory. So if you if you delete your cache or if you're using incognito mode or something like that, it goes away. And so there's no way to get it back. So what you have to do if you work in the online version is you have to frequently archive it. And that can be a hassle. That's the way that you download it. That's not a convenient way to work, especially if you're going to do something that you intend to develop over time. So download Twine before you start doing it, right? So you got different versions here, Windows, Mac, or Linux. Download whichever one and then use it. But once you use it, let me show you what it looks like. Clickety clackety. It's a hypertext editor. So when you click on things, you double click on a passage to edit it. This is the beginning. Clickety clackety. And then it is Monday, and there are birds in the yard. It's all right, so that's good enough, right? So you just type things and then that's what it is. Let me just show you what this looks like so far. You can hit the test button or the play button, and there it goes. You can read it, but this is hypertext, so we need to make it text. Oh, is there a bird? Do we have a bird visitor? Did I miss it? Oh, I did? Oh, cool. It's already gone, but I'm so glad that works. Thanks. I have my curtain closed, so I can't see it. So, Bobby, you go to twinery.org. Let me show you. If you go to the website that's linked there, twinery.org, and it says download 2.3.12, that's the one you want. So but you can also just pick your platform if you know which platform you're on. So, which operating system you're using. So yeah, try that. Okay, so yeah, there are birds in my yard, but let's see. Let's make this hypertext. So what we do for Twine, the syntax is actually pretty simple to just type it this way, although I guess you can use these buttons. I don't really know how they work though. So I'm just gonna do it in this way. If you put two of these square brackets around any text, it becomes a link to another passage. And then if I click in this, I'm double clicking here, I can edit this now. So birds. Right, so just one passage so far, but if I hit play, I can see that that is now a link, and I can click that, and now I access that passage. I think it's a very intuitive editor. I think it really works well to get started with this. You can do pretty complicated stuff with Twine too, like variables and like player statistics and things like that. I kind of want to challenge you with this. So, hey, it's a Carolina Wren. So if you've already done a little bit of Twine, maybe try to push yourself trying out the variables and the macros and stuff. But yeah, the basics of it again are pretty intuitive. Like, right, you just sort of do like that, and now I've got another passage. So that's Twine. Like I said, I'm not going to give you a huge tutorial for these things, but I think many of you have seen Twine before in other classes. If you are still trying to figure out what the deal is with Twine, of course, I will be assigning some works in Twine. 10 Lost Boys was Twine. This is, if you look on the twinery.org at their website, this little sample section here will show you 4 random ones. And these are pulled randomly from IFDB, so some of these are going to be really pretty good, and some of them are going to be just kind of iffy. So, your mileage will vary, but what I like about this is that you get lots of different kinds of things, and so you might learn different 8 years into the future to the terrifying world of college. Interesting. It sounds like a pretty personal idea. But anyway, this is how you can learn more about Twine, just kind of see what's there. But when we talk about hypertext in a couple weeks, then hypertext fiction, I will definitely be assigning several works of Twine just to learn about anyway. Okay, so moving on. Inky. Inky is the engine behind 80 Days, which is a game you may have heard of or may have experienced in my games and culture class. I don't have it downloaded on this computer at the moment, so I'll just show you this image of it. This is a screenshot of what it looks like when you're writing it, and it kind of looks a little codey, but what you see on the left is the writing, and then what you see on the right is the output. It is very much like choose your own adventure based, so it will be like multiple choice questions. So like here's a situation, and here's 3, 4, 5 choices like to click on based on whatever that situation is. So it's a little bit more kind of back and forth than Twine, but you could certainly create similar kinds of things in Twine. It's just like for Twine, you would have to create that structure of writing a paragraph and then having options below it. Twine is set up in a different way by default. But it certainly works, and it looks a little intimidating here on the left, but what's really cool about what's happening on the left is that it's a kind of simple markup syntax. It's similar to Markdown, which is a kind of shorthand way of writing HTML code, and this is pretty similar to that, but it's written in their proprietary language. And I don't know if it's proprietary, it might be open source. But anyway, what happens is you can type just a few characters and using indentations to create pretty rich structure. And once you learn it, it goes very, very quickly. So I recommend it. I think it's a pretty cool thing to try. But at least, like anything else, try it out, right? And there is a way to publish these on the web once you're done. But like with most of these, there's like different considerations for how you get the thing online. So don't worry about that yet. I'll help you figure that out once you get to that point with whatever project. Okay, so that's Inky. Inky is cool, or Ink. Is it Ink or Inky? Whatever it is. The next one I want to talk about is Inform 7, but it's actually, so there's Inform 7, which is the underlying language and also the name of the development environment that you can use to create really rich interactive fiction. This is what was used to create Snack Time. So Snack Time is a work created with Inform 7. There's a website called Playfic, which is a web-based implementation of Inform 7. And if you want to learn about this, this is kind of cool that one of their featured games still is Moon River by Emily Pilot. She's an alum. She graduated. She took this class a few years ago and completed this project for this class, and it's one of their featured things there. Oh, and there's Shannon, right? So Shannon she works in DLS right now at UMW, but she also was a student in this class like the first time I taught this class. So 10, 11 years ago, she took it there, and she took the class then, but she now works for UMW, and so she just she was watching the stream earlier, so she just shared her work on Playfic. Let me show you how this works. The website has been kind of slow this morning, so I don't know if this will work that well, but oh, and Shannon's still watching. Great. Hey, Shannon. Yeah. Yeah, that's the point, right? It doesn't have to be great. It just needs to, you learn how it works, right? Okay. So what the heck is this? I just have so many demo games here, it's ridiculous. Okay, but this is actually a pretty good demo of it. this is what it looks like when you write in Form 7. Now, if you download in Form 7 and use that development environment, it looks much more robust, but that robustness is really confusing, I think. I like the simplicity of this. However, well, the challenge with Inform 7 as a language and Playfic as an implementation of it too is that there's a lot you have to know. It assumes a lot, and you have to know what it's assuming. And then when you write the code for it, this is actually the source code of a game, and if you read it, it actually looks like prose. It's English language descriptive or declarative sentences. So I made this back when the HCC was the ICCC, so now I can just update this. So if I want to, I can say HCC 427 is a room, or 327 is a room. And that is the command in Inform that creates a world and then puts a place in that world named HCC 327. That place is called a room, which means it has certain properties like the ability for players to be inside of it. And also it has the ability to have exits and geographic relationships to other rooms. So this is what's called an object-oriented language. So every object that you create is a kind of thing, and it inherits properties from its parent. And so it's a lot going on under the hood, basically. And that's why whenever you write the prose for this, it's this really stilted kind of prose. So this is back, if you remember, the console living room up there in the HCC. I don't know if any of you remember that, but I guess some of you do. But if you want to make a couch, this is how you have to make a couch. You have to write, there is a couch in the console living room. The couch is an enterable supporter, which is kind of a strange way to say it, but that's a special word for Inform. And there's a bird, I think that's a sparrow. But that's the idea. So if we want to, we could add a sparrow here. Like we could add, there is a sparrow in console living room. I guess we could say the console living room. Let's try it. And I should make sure if you change the names, it's going to get confused. So I'm just going to delete all this. Because it wants to create a coherent world, and if you try to make it in a way that, like this would actually cause a bug here because I've named HCC 327 wrong. I have a typo. So let me try this. But I think, yeah, the website here, the server seems to be a little slow this minute. Yes, I got that. Thanks, Piper. So this is the, now I'm in HCC 327, and I can, if you remember from snack time, you can go east, west, south, north, whatever. So if I go, I know from my code that the console living room is to the east. So if I go east, now I'm in the console living room, and I can see a couch and a sparrow here. So I can sit on couch, I think. Right, I can sit on couch. I can get sparrow, and now it's in my inventory. But it doesn't know what a sparrow is. Like the game doesn't know that a sparrow is a kind of bird. There are ways you could do that, but I don't remember them off the top of my head. I'd have to look at the documentation for how you make animals. But there is an animal object class, and it has certain things like the ability to speak, which is interesting. So that's Playfic. Honestly, it's really interesting, but challenging in certain ways too. Okay, so choice scripts. I'm not going to show you Squiffier choice scripts because they are pretty similar to actually Inky, but they are similar kind of choose your own adventure kinds of things, and you're welcome to try them out. You may find them easier or better for certain things, but you're welcome to try it out. I do want to show you Puzzle Script because it is pretty different. Puzzle Script is a graphic engine kind of thing, but very simple and minimalist. And I'll show you what it looks like. The way it works is this on the left is my code, and it has collisions, it has behavior, it has like a basic syntax. It's extremely minimalist though. So like you set up your objects, you set up your legend, you're basically writing this in almost like a roguelike or like a Dwarf Fortress kind of syntax, but it is what it is. So let's see. Let's just take a look at the basic tutorial. So this is the basic tutorial, and I'm controlling, you can see as I move my arrow keys, I'm controlling this kind of sprite figure. The sprite figure code is right here. So where it says player, you name the colors that the player consists of each of those colors gets a number assigned to it. So when you type that number in the little block below, it creates that sprite based on those points. And the number of the size of it is based on how much of a map you build. Basically, it just takes a lot of trial and error. I think once you get it, it does make sense. But there's lots of examples here basically to help you figure out kind of how to do things. Let's see how this one works. Ooh. Push a whale off to free it. Okay. Ooh. Huh. Clickety clackety. So how do I? Okay. So it does these like little puzzle games pretty well. But you can do other things with it too. I've seen pretty interesting. For my games and culture class, I found somebody who had made a Nat Turner simulator. I don't know if simulator is the right word, but it's a puzzle script version of the Nat Turner Rebellion story, which you hopefully know from Virginia history, or just from U.S. history. It was a slave rebellion in Southampton, and it's a really violent slave rebellion. So somebody sort of made a version of that event using puzzle script, which is pretty interesting. I think sort of problematic, but it was cool. So it was interesting that they were able to do something that had that much like nuance to it, even though I think nuance is always the problem or the challenge in video games, especially when you deal with sensitive subjects. All right, so let me look at some other examples. So Step.works is we experienced this when we did the Terra thing, Terra. And what's fun is that the code of it is actually a spreadsheet. So you can create a Google spreadsheet and actually I don't want to do that. And then you load it into what it calls a stage, and then it transforms it into that format where you click or tap to advance to the next one. All right, so as examples, there is, I mentioned Emily Pilot's sample story. Liz Brantley was another student from this class a few years ago who completed this work as her final project, I believe. And I think she did this for her creative project initially, and then she did the final version. But it's an interesting work, and I wanted to show you a bit of it to show you what's possible with Stepworks. Because you saw Terra, that was using that one kind of stage template where the text kind of loads up from the bottom and kind of marches up the screen. This one has 6 or 9 different places for text to appear. And then as you click through it, you start to get... she's used these different places to create different voices. It's a pretty long work, actually, as you click through it. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing. But what you kind of see is the different voices in her head, essentially, or the different self-narratives that she has as the character in the story, the narrator. I mean, I'm pretty sure Liz was basing this on her own experiences, but it's a pretty interesting work, right? So yeah, it's a pretty elaborate work too, and I offer it as an example of what's possible with this platform. Not to say that you have to do something like this or as robust as this, but it's very impressive work, and I find it very compelling. Okay, so that's Stepworks. Wick Editor is hard to demonstrate, but I will try. This is actually meant to take some of the features that people really liked from Flash, but make it possible to use in a web browser, and also create something that will run in a web browser using HTML canvases as opposed to the Flash thing. So if you want to do timeline-based animation, this actually can do it. I don't think it can do like vector tweening yet, although I haven't looked at this in a while. This is in continual development, so I don't know if I can even remember how to do this. Like, how do I insert a tween? I don't remember. Or not a keyframe. I want to insert a keyframe. I don't remember. Oh, here. Yeah. So what do I do? So I move it like that. Let me see if I can get this figured out. Yeah, okay. So I think that's going to make that little squiggle move. Yeah, there we go. So then you can play it. There it goes. All right. So that's the idea, basically. It's a vector editor. So it's pretty cool. And it's every time I come back to this project, it looks more robust. Like they keep adding features to it. So I'm not sure currently everything it can do, but I think it's pretty cool. So if you wanted to make any kind of web game, this might be a decent way to try to do that, or just an animation, right? That would be fine too. I can imagine using like a kinetic poetry basically that's what I would recommend for kinetic poetry, if that's something you want to do. Right, because you could type something, I think, right? It's poetry, and then put that here. Can I move that too, or is the tween only? Sorry, I'm just playing with this on the stream. Can I move it? Yeah, there we go. Oh, maybe I have to keyframe it too separately. I don't know, but hopefully you see the idea that you could do kinetic poetry with this. Like you can make things move. I don't know if you can script it though. Yeah, no, I think you can action script it or JavaScript it. I think there's like a code view of this too, if you don't want to use the editor. Anyway, that's it. Twitter bots. So cheat bots done quick is the best way to make a Twitter bot. Of the Twitter bots I've made, many of them are with cheat bots done quick. I certainly think it's easier to use than another tool which I can recommend a little bit, which I made, but I think cheat bots done quick is better than my tool, so I would recommend using it. It's just they have different affordances, different things you can do with them. Cheat bots done quick is definitely faster, so that's why it's called done quick. Cheat bots done quick. My thing is called SSBot, and it uses a spreadsheet. So you make a copy of this spreadsheet and then you fill it in. It gets pretty complicated, and that's because you are setting up a relationship between this Google spreadsheet and a Twitter account, and you're getting Google and Twitter to talk to each other. And honestly, some of these things may not even work because Google and Twitter both have this thing where they'll just sort of change the rules for how their platforms work without telling anyone ahead of time. So there may be problems with it. I think it works though. I think I heard somebody recently the other day said they got a bot running with it. And I'm sure lots of people have. But your mileage will vary. But that said, I can probably help you debug it because I wrote it. So like if it breaks, then I probably know how to fix it. But maybe not actually, because it's the kind of thing I put it out there as open source software, and other people have forked it and done newer things with it. So some of those things I did not create myself, so I may not be able to help you with those. But anyway, it's the idea. The main thing that it has that cheatbots done quick doesn't have is the Markov chain engine built into it. But otherwise, it helps you. This is actually a good example of combinatory poetics, which is what we're talking about these couple weeks. The idea that you have different lists and you choose items from different lists, and that's how you construct a sentence, right? So it's like a template, like a Mad Libs kind of template. This is the basic here. And this template is essentially what you're creating in cheatbots done quick, except with cheatbots done quick, you're writing it in a language called Tracery, which is a JavaScript library or a tool. Let me see if I can find one that's actually. Does this one have the source code? No. I'm surprised that one got suspended. This is a bot made with cheatbots done quick and lots of eyes. That's a good one, but that's kind of confusing to look at. Soft landscape is also really, really amazing. Let's try this one. Yeah, this is confusing to look at. So my House Hunters bot is made with this. Let me just show you that one. So this is the Twitter bot that I made, and it's this is the source code. Again, it looks like a lot, but it really isn't. So it's basically a list of lists, and for each item in the list, it puts different things in places from each of those lists, and then it uses these to construct different versions of the same joke over and over again, and that's what a lot of Twitter bots are. But basically, it just says to it generates things like, the joke about that you may have heard if you've watched House Hunters. So the woman one says, I build hollow trees out of horse chestnut, and I'm a cougar publisher, and our budget is $1.9 million. Like, people always seem to have ridiculous budgets on House Hunters. So that's what this is a joke about. I don't know if it's funny anymore, honestly, but people seem to like it, so I'm not going to shut it down. It's just, I think the joke has definitely run its course, and that's kind of the point of the bot, is to kind of run the joke into the ground. And so, you know, your mileage will vary with that. Anyway, a couple more text. Flick is kind of weird, kind of hard to explain, but the idea is that it's a color-based thing, and I don't actually remember how to make it work this way. So it's like you assign a color to go to a particular next slide. So it basically creates point and click kind of adventure games, I think. Pretty interesting and unusual, but kind of hard to explain. Let me see if I can find an example. No, how do I? No. Oh, here's the so here's an explanation, and there's some other games that are even more minimalist. Oh, interesting. Okay, so yeah, here's an example game. So this is a image created, right? So it's a pixel editor, just bitmap editor, and then you can click on a color. So if we click on that color, it goes to the next slide, which has this appearance, and then you click again, and then you keep clicking, right? So it's color-based point and click. That's the idea. All right, then finally telescopic text, and I am mindful of time, so I'm going to be wrapping up soon. But let me show you an example of telescopic text. It's a different way of thinking about hypertext. This is actually close to what Ted Nelson called stretch text way back in the 1970s. But this is telescopic text. It's the same idea, but with a different name. And the idea is that, as you can see here, these are links. These are things you can click on, but they don't take you somewhere else. They just expand in place. So T becomes a cup of tea, and then cup becomes a nice cup of tea. Nice becomes a nice hot cup of tea. And T still sits there. We could click on these in any order, all right? So we can expand it in whatever order we want as we click on it. So that's part of the experience of this work. You're making decisions, but they aren't necessarily like choices about what to do next. They are different places within the text to explore. So pretty interesting. Okay, so those are several tools. Again, take a look through these before class on Wednesday so you have some idea of what you're interested in, and start exploring these, start trying to figure these things out, and I think you will enjoy it. But you certainly don't have to commit to anything yet. I definitely would not if I were you. Okay, so just a few minutes to talk about combinatoric poetics. Since it's Valentine's Day, or it was, this is a love letter generated by a computer, and I would like to read it to you. Darling sweetheart, you are my dear hunger, my devoted enthusiasm. You are my little love, my burning enthusiasm. My tenderness lovingly yearns for your enchantment. Yours breathlessly, Imusi. This is a poem generated by a computer. The program that this was, the original program for this was written in 1952, and this is a version. This output that I got here was generated this morning through the JavaScript version of this. And when I say generated, it means that this is a template. This is kind of like what I showed you with my spreadsheet and the different options you can select. But this is a template for a letter, and it's always signed Imusi, which is the computer. And so this is like a love letter that the computer has written to us. And as you can see, it's kind of formal, kind of sexy, kind of not. It's sort of weird. And so that's why it's an interesting example of electronic literature. And it is certainly electronic literature. But it was created by Christopher Strachey in 1952, kind of as a joke, but also kind of proves a point, I think. But it's definitely a work of literature. So thinking about how this would work, roses are red and violets are blue are the standard templates. I had a whole thing I was going to do with that. But I did want to mention one thing. This is the I Ching, and if we're thinking about the history of combinatoric poetics, I think it makes sense to go all the way back here. This will be my last example as I wrap things up. I know it's almost 12:10. But the I Ching is a pre-digital work. In fact, the I Ching is about 3,000 years old. So it definitely predates computers, but it uses combinatorics to create something. And whether or not the thing it creates is poetry, I think is debatable, but I think it is like poetry or close enough that I think we should understand it as a precedent. And sorry, there's a woodpecker messing with my bat house. I think it's the red-bellied woodpecker. But its head is really red. I'm wondering if it's actually a red-headed woodpecker, those are pretty rare. So anyway, sorry, I know I need to wrap up, but this is a pretty significant arrival in my yard. Yeah, I think it was the red belly, which I've seen before, but I don't want him messing with my bat house. Okay, so I Ching. All right, so the I Ching it's called or the Book of Changes. It's a book of divination or oracular wisdom. It's not really a fortune teller, although some people probably use it that way. But it's a way of generating images and ideas and helping you understand a situation. It's composed of several elements. A reading is built up from several elements. The fundamental element is yin and yang. Some people want to view this as like the 1 and 0 of binary. I think that's a stretch, but it certainly has that same characteristics of being 1 and 0. The main difference, I think, is that for an I Ching reading, it's not just 1 and 0, but it's 1 becoming 0 and 0 becoming 1. It's that process, and you don't really have that in equivalent by analogy in digital stuff. Those yin and yangs are grouped in different ways. The first grouping is in what's called a trigram, and there are 8 possible combinations of yin and yang lines. So the 3 broken lines is 3 yins, and that corresponds to yins. Yeah, it corresponds to earth. A broken, a solid, and a broken is water. These associations are traditional, but there's a document explaining what these are, and there are different versions of that document and different interpretations of it. But that's the idea, is that these have some kind of image associated with them. And then these trigrams are grouped into pairs, which are called hexagrams. So a hexagram is, you could say 6 lines, but it's really 2 trigrams. And so it'll be, in this case, this is earth on top of water. And then this is, I don't remember, something else on top of water. There are actually 64 possible ones. This is a typo. So it's 8 times 8 because there are 8 for the top option and 8 for the bottom option. So 8 times 8 gives you 64 possible hexagrams. And then the document, like the Book of Changes, is an explanation of what each of those 64 hexagrams mean as archetypes. And when you do a reading of this, you roll some dice, or you do a series of coin flips, or you do a series of, there's like some kind of rods system. That's how it originally was done. But basically, you use a stochastic method to generate a reading, or generate a pair of hexagrams. And the way you read them is the one hexagram transforming into the next one. That corresponds to whatever situation you're asking the book about. So you approach it by forming a question in your mind. You run through the process to generate a pair of hexagrams, and then you read the interpretation of that pair, and that's what gives you your insight. Or really, you think about what that image means in an application to your situation, and then through that thinking, you develop the insight that hopefully gives you the wisdom that you need in order to make the right decision about something. So it's a whole process to it, but I feel like that whole idea of having images and having interpretations of them, and having really poetic images, not like graphic images, I feel like that's a lot like poetry. And so I feel like I want to point to this as a really early combinatoric poetry generator, essentially. If you want to try it out, ichingonline.net is a web-based implementation of it. But yeah, your mileage will vary, I guess. But try it out and let us know how it goes if you find something, if you discover anything with it, or if it delivers you some good wisdom. All right, so just to wrap up, I know we're almost out of time. We're over time. But explore options for the creative project, and read Scott Redberg's Chapter 2. Remember, it's a little bit longer than Chapter 1, so give yourself some time. Certainly use Perusal to annotate or comment or ask questions about it as you read. And that'll be what we cover on Wednesday. Again, I'll see the even cohort in person on Wednesday, and the odd cohort you'll be online, but I'll give you some instructions to work on. Like I'll talk to you also, but then I'll give you all some instructions to work together to figure some things out related to the chapter. Okay, so that is it for today. I'm going to wrap things up here, but I will leave the stream on the bird cam for a little bit if you'd like to watch, just in case. I don't know. I mean, I've not seen the red-bellied woodpecker ever on the feeder, but that would be pretty cool if it did decide to visit. I mean, I don't think it was a red-headed woodpecker because those are rare, but it was very red. Like, it looked a lot redder than I've noticed before. So anyway, maybe it'll show up. Or maybe the downy will show up too. Who knows? Okay, I'll switch it over to the bird cam. There we go. Okay, everyone, have a good day. I'll see you all on Wednesday.